I have like 5.
One is gonna be.
Wait a minute, Lisa's gonna get her camera.
Consolidated.
She's gonna get her camera.
I mean, it's more. And then the finance stuff.
We'll still be able to do the finance just in a single page.
Y'all
heard that?
You're done.
Hey,
So to learn something, you do it, just come on.
I
I had to learn that the hard way.
You're gonna get better, those problems here, man. I let it handed on school, where you're gonna have to picture stuff on your product.
Yes, you will.
I hope you like to smile until your teeth are dry.
Right.
I do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified, according to the Constitution of this state, to exercise the duties of the office to which I've been elected. And that I will, to the best of my ability, discharge the duties thereof, and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state, and of the United States. So help me God. So there you go.
Let me know. It's a world report that last night, to look at the clock change.
So how's it feel to be 29?
How many times you gonna do it?
I'm gonna do it as long as I can.
You can get away.
Miss Will can get away with it way, and I can.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. My name is Anthony Carpenter. I'm the vice chair, and I'm sitting in tonight for our chairman who recently was hospitalized with some little complications, but he's back with us tonight. And we want to thank God for that and pray for his speedy recovery. And number two, I'd like to welcome Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, sir. Thank all of you. Y'all been very well.
And we hope that this be a great experience for you, and keep in mind that we serve the community and the kids, and let's try to stay positive and keep it going. I also want to welcome our audience who joined us by media circuit tonight. We hope that you get something from this meeting. This will probably be our last meeting before school convenes next month, and we hope you get some understanding of how school is going to open back up. And we know everybody's not going to be pleased, but we just have to do the best we can. This is new for all of us. You know, this is something that we didn't ask for, we didn't expect, but it's here and we have to deal with it. We think we have the right leadership in place. We know our board is on the board. We have excellent teachers and staff, and we're gonna try to get this thing done the right way. Okay? Lisa, do we have a confirmation meeting?
Yes, sir. Media was notified.
Okay, and we have a declaration quorum. Request to approve the agenda.
So move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Okay, the request was approved and second. We stand for the pledge of allegiance.
We have to take a vote.
Yeah.
All in favor. We have to take a vote.
On the agenda.
Okay, we have been moved and second. We have a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, now we do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America.
And to the republic with which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we need a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion that we go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of certified employment contracts and a personnel matter.
Second.
Okay, we will go into executive session and
They move it properly.
it's been moving properly second, so we're going to executive session with convene. All in favor, all in favor.
Say aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Then board, ring that doorbell. Have it in here, and the board will come out there and get it.
I'll bring it to you.
I'm ready.
I couldn't forgive myself.
We're not.
Sorry.
Having a little bit too much fun.
Evident.
Oh, you found your plane? Was in the dessert?
Okay.
There was no dessert.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I didn't eat mine.
I didn't eat mine either, but
I didn't eat mine either.
I was gonna take it.
I didn't eat the carrot cake. I think I need to.
Okay, we are back in open session. And you need a motion for approving the certified employment contract recommendation.
Ms. Vice Chair, and Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the certified employment contract recommendation for the 2021 school year on the names presented in the executive session.
Second.
So the move is properly second. No question? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. To accept the certified employment contract recommendation of the superintendent. We have a request for approval of minutes for June 15, 2020.
Mr. Chair, are you gonna do them one at a time, or are you going to do them all at once, because there's 5 different?
Well, we have,
Yeah, I'm
we
still.
do them all at once. Yeah, so we need a request for approval of minutes for June 15, 2020, July the 8th, work session, July 8th call meeting, July 21st work session, and July 21st call meeting.
Make motion we approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second. Question? Ready to vote? All in favor? Say aye. Opposed, nay. Approved, carried. Next, we go to the superintendent report. Dr. Tom.
Mr. Vice Chairman Carpenter and members of the board, I am delighted to be able to share some information and updates about the things that are happening in Lawrence 55. Lawrence District 55 applied for and received 3 separate LOE 21st Century Community Learning Center grants to serve all 8 elementary and middle schools. The grants total $260,000 each and are for 4 years. for a total of just over $3 million. The combined projects will serve approximately 300 students daily. The project will include 30 weeks of before and after school academic support and enrichment, as well as 30 days of summer programming. Academic and enrichment activities will be planned and implemented and evaluated and will be directly connected to regular school day activities. The South Carolina College and Career Ready academic standards, the profile of the South Carolina graduate, and transportation will be provided by our school buses. Food will be provided by our school district Department of Student Nutrition Services, and the YMCA will provide program mentors. Summer enrichment activities will be held at Fellowship Camp and Conference Center. We're also very excited that we also received the first book in the Creating Learning Connections grant for grades K through 5. With this grant, we will receive 350 fully configured Chromebooks, 81 Lego Education Early Simple Machine sets for grades K through 2, 188 Lego Education Simple Machine sets for grades 3 through 5, 81 Lego Education Simple Powered Machines for grades 4 through 8, and a $4,000 stipend to help subsidize the cost of internet for families that we serve. We're very appreciative of Ms. Jeannie Carty, who's been very instrumental in the development, writing, and submission of these grants that will benefit our district greatly. In addition, the Department of Student Nutrition Services has served in excess of 597,000 meals since the emergency pandemic closure in March. The department will switch to the regular school year format on September the 8th as far as providing those meals to students, providing breakfast and lunch to all students at no cost. Plans are also underway to provide curbside pickup for students participating in the Lawrence County Virtual Academy. The school cafeterias have also taken steps to help ensure safety, including the installation of plexiglass shields on all serving lines. Social distancing markers have been put in place and staff will wear masks at all times. We're also very excited about our back to school drive-through supply pickup that is scheduled for Friday, August the 28th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're working with Lawrence City Police Chief Latimer on the traffic pattern, and we're excited to see our students and families drive through to pick up their backpacks and supplies. We are very grateful for the many who contributed to make this event possible. Also, our student nutrition services will also be giving out fresh fruit on the 28th during this event, as well as hand sanitizer. In regards to our media centers, we are providing each media center with $500 to help offset the cost of replacing materials that were not returned when we had to suddenly close school in March. We've also provided media centers with 2 additional book parks, one of which will be used to provide curbside materials checkout and return for students enrolled in the Lawrence County Virtual Academy. During the 2019-2020 school year, 7 students from Lawrence District 5 High School earned the Global Seal of Literacy. So we're very excited to be able to congratulate these students for this honor. The seal is an international credential that conveys proficiency with language skills in 2 or more languages. This credential offers a competitive advantage by possibly helping students earn scholarships, higher pay, college credit, increased study abroad opportunities, and much more. The Global Seal of Literacy also allows employers to easily verify language skills, and have confidence that an applicant possesses valuable soft skills linked to language learners. A certificate, letter from the superintendent, and a medallion were mailed to the following students in honor of this great achievement: Layton Abel, Maria Diaz Reynoso, Hannah Hardy, Imani Hunt, Priscilla Howery, Kayla Marino, Priscilla Panigwawa Huerta, Nancy Reynoso, and Zavdi Rios Tina Hera. So we're very excited about these students receiving the honor. We're very excited. We've also had an opportunity to have our Summer Institute Professional Development. We had over 350 students and staff registered for professional development throughout the week of July 27th through the 31st. Participants were given the opportunity to attend virtual sessions that included e-learning training, instructional strategies, social emotional learning, personalized learning, diversity, and assessments. This was a great way to reach a large audience with a variety of topics and will continue to open the door for more streamlined, efficient, and effective professional development for teachers, staff, and administrators. So we're very excited about that opportunity and for Dr. Brink organizing that as well. So that is the conclusion of my portion of the report. But I would also like to ask for Dr. Brink to come and share information regarding weekly information.
Can I ask a question about the back to school for families, right? If a family didn't sign up, how, and I mean, just from lack of knowledge, how can they be given something if they come forward, even though they did not register?
If they do show up and they did not register, we will get information and we will try to provide those services to those parents. Right now, as far as what we have prepared, is definitely for the parents that have registered, but we will try to accommodate as many as possible. So if we have someone to show up and get their information, and hopefully be able to accommodate them.
I have a question before she starts. What's the distribution of the Lego grant? I know you said that there were 81 that we received, 81 pieces or
Grades 1 through 8?
yeah, I mean, how's that gonna be distributed? Is there gonna be so many per school or, I mean?
Dr. Thomas, if you'd like to try more than that, answer that question. They are gonna be distributed equitably among the schools depending on the grade bands. And then the Chromebooks will go to fill in some of our places in the elementary school that we need some replacements. But as far as all the Lego kits by grade bands, they'll be equally divided so that they can be used at each elementary and each middle school.
And is that like a particular program that we're gonna be pushing that,
It's related particularly to STEM learning and it supports, we're a very big Lego first district with our robotics. And so it really works very well in conjunction with those programs as well as the content and the instruction in each of those grade levels. The simple machines would be in the standards for that grade level. So it's more hands-on and getting more Legos type robotics type things that our kids do a lot of in middle school and high school, getting it down into the elementary school.
right? So is that gonna be, since it's a smaller number, trying to spread them out? I mean, are there only gonna be like certain groups out of those grade levels that are gonna be working with this?
They'll be like most manipulatives where they can be shared among, but there should be enough where they can equitably share, the kindergarten and K through 2 will be able to use these in tandem. There's enough to be able to do. Jody, you can help me fill in just a little bit.
And actually, we do already have some in our district. So this will be in addition to help accommodate some of the things that we already have in place. So we already have some of these materials currently in our schools.
Let me just kind of give you a background of the actual grant itself. Whenever the grant was pushed out by First Book, which is a company that sells children's literature and regular readers at a very discounted price. And so we're members of First Book, but they have partnered with Intel and a company called CDW that also, and Lego, to combine their forces to be able to push out a grant. With the pandemic that happened in March, it was a grant to say, how can we still make sure that there's enough science and STEM related activities that are happening? And we were able to apply for this because we had to stop some of our STEM Saturdays. We had to cancel our summer Lego robotics STEM camp. And so with some of the opportunities that we had lost, that was kind of our narrative to say that we're in need because we've lost these supports due to the pandemic. And that's how we applied. And so those large companies granted 47 grants nationwide, and we were one of those 47 awardees as a nationwide grant by those 4 large corporations. So it was a very competitive grant that we were very proud to get. And like Dr. Thomas said, Jenny Carty was very instrumental in pulling all that together for us.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, I am going to, Dr. Thomas asked to give an update of our Leap Week, which is upon us next week. Our teachers return back today, and then next week we will be, and this is going to be hard for me to do, I apologize with this mask, but next week we will be involved in our state mandated Leap Week for Learn, Evaluate, Analyze, and Plan. And all of our administrators at the school level have been actively working to make sure that this is a very meaningful and effective and efficient way to help our students transition back into school. So the purpose that's proposed through the state was to make sure that we use the funding from the CARES Act to provide instruction for grades 4K through 8. We also, in addition, decided to make sure that we have our 9th graders in as well as part of finding out their baseline information, as well as giving them an opportunity to transition to a very big transition for them from middle school to high school. And so what we will use the LEAP days will be to prepare students to return through the operations that need to happen there, to assess them and plan for how we can strategically engage them in new instruction, and to facilitate that student learning as we get started back into the school year. So our district, we're going to make sure that, and you'll see in this next plan, in our district operation plan, we started with an operation plan to work with the principals to make sure that we were revisiting prior content and skills when we could. You'll see all of the diagnostic activities there that our students will be involved in at each grade level to make sure that we have appropriate baseline data to be able to plan for them. More data analysis for what they already have, and some formative assessments. A good time for some of our kindergarten teachers to listen to our students read and do some things like that to make sure they're getting used to and that these kids are finding out who their new teachers are. That social and emotional preparation is very important for students as they are returning to school. That meet the teacher, tours of the school, particularly for our 6th graders and our 9th graders. Things like scavenger hunts around the school, making sure that they get used to and have that positive experience with coming back to school. Review of our individualized education plans, establishing those routines and procedures, which will be so important as we start back. And within that, I've got there a daily tech check. And that's something that we're working with technology to have students daily, each group that comes in, to daily log on at the same time, so that we can evaluate our infrastructure in Lawrence 55 and anticipate any issues that there may be with a good bit of use of online technology. So that's one extra step that we're going to do each day with each group of students. That also allows teachers the opportunity to instruct their students on how to get onto things like Google Classroom, and sets the routine for them as well. And then professional development for teachers throughout the week, as we can fit that in. So from our operating plan, we set our district goals, and that's K through 9. That's that first positive impression. the orientation that each one of them, no matter the grade level, needs, and then the assessment piece as well. You'll also see open house and virtual meet the teachers. Each school is going to make sure they provide either an open house or a meet the teacher so that students have that opportunity and parents have that opportunity for our virtual, for them to meet their teacher before they come in. In addition to the overall goals, specifically for 9th and for 6th graders, I have a 6th grader myself, so this is something that he's excited about as he transitions from elementary to high school, or elementary to middle, and then our middle to high school, with a suggestion there that they have set up at least 2 days for all 6th graders to attend, and 9th graders, 2 days for them to attend, so that they can spread their assessments out and really build that positive first impression to their school, understanding what the new routines and the new procedures are, and still getting the baseline data that they need. So in addition to the expectations and procedures and to meet the teacher that everyone's doing, they'll also make sure that they have some small group tours. I know our high school is doing a mini cake fair, so observing all the social distancing rules, but still being able to provide them with some opportunities to get to know their new environment. This is just, I know it's hard to see, but just so you know, our schools have been working very hard. Our principals and instructional teams to each have a daily schedule that they submitted so that everybody is on the same page, that they know what they're doing during each time, that we make sure that our goals are reflected in their schedules. So throughout all of these in elementary school, in middle school, and then at the high school level, you will see, I know you can't see in here, but just knowing that the words meet the teacher, orientation, we were very much centered around our district goals to make sure that each school was well planned, and they have done an amazing job with all of the different changes of assessment that have come down through the state, adjusting and readjusting. So I feel very positive about the organization of Leap Week next week, and we're really, really excited to get our students in and get moving. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, and Mr. Finley will share some technology updates.
Would anyone like any good news?
Yes.
I can provide that. We had 700 student laptops that were arrived last Tuesday afternoon, more than a month ahead of schedule. It threw the technology department into a bit of a panic because we had to shuffle our plans around a little bit. We did not anticipate these coming in until the end of September. But it would prevent us, if we could get these things, we could get these laptops configured, processed, we wouldn't have to give the 11th and 12th graders a temporary Chromebook and then do a swap once these came in. So that's the we are trying to get them all processed so that they would be ready on September the 1st when they are supposed to go out. So we're going to give it our best effort. The Chromebooks for 9th and 10th grade are ready. All middle school Chromebooks are ready. All Chromebooks for 2nd through 5th grade are ready. The temporary Chromebooks for K-5 and 1st grade are ready. Remember the 2-in-1 devices, and they're still slated to come in at the end of September. They may come in early too, so we'll have to wait on that. But the temporary devices that we give the K-5 and 1st graders are ready, with the exception of one delivery of Chromebooks tomorrow morning. The 4K Chromebooks will be ready. The staff has just done a great job. I can't thank them enough for all they've done. Lots of overtime and just putting in extra hours, and they deserve a lot of credit. Teacher devices. We continue to address the device needs for teachers, staff, and assistants. The vast majority of teachers and staff have laptops, mobile devices. Assistants and second devices for teachers, we will evaluate those after all of the students have devices. We think with this, with these laptops coming in, that our Chromebook numbers will have a little extra, so we might be able to give some second devices to teachers and some devices for some of the assistants. Hotspots. The state's plan, I had to scratch this out because all of these arrived today. More good news. The hotspots from the state arrived today, AT&T mobile hotspots. The application for parents is on our website now. And there will be one final form that we're going to require parents. We need a signature on this to make sure they understand the stipulations of the hotspot that they're going to receive. Those stipulations are a family income requirement that they must meet, absence of permanent internet access in the home. They can't already have permanent internet access. Only one hotspot per home for qualifying homes. And make sure they know the responsibility and payment of a lost or damaged hotspot. And that there is an acknowledgement by signing this, that there is an acknowledgement that the state is only committed to pay for these through December of 2020. We don't really know what's going to happen after that. I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, we'll form a plan on that. There's probably, this is my personal opinion, but there's three options. The state could continue some support for these. They have made no indication of that so far. The district could maybe find a way to pick up the tab for some of these hotspots into second semester. And possibly some of the homes that have these could contribute some for the payment of these for second semester. I don't know. A plan needs to be worked on, but for right now, they're paid for until December, through December of 2020.
Can I ask you a question
Yes, ma'am.
just about the hotspot? If there's a, you said there's a form online right now for, are we putting out a phone blast to let parents know that there's that form? Because if they don't have internet or anything to check the website, then they probably don't know that the form's there.
Well, I think that the best way for word to get out that there is that there's an application online is going to be by word of mouth. And we have had several calls coming in, and we're asking about the hotspots. We did send out 2 phone surveys and 2 series of emails telling about the state hotspots. And that was, those were mainly to get an idea of numbers that we could report to for the state.
Mm-hmm.
We have not sent out a phone survey, a call alert to tell people that there is something on the website.
But if they don't have internet to do an online application already, if the whole purpose of the hotspot is to gain internet access, then they're not going to have access to get online, to do an online application.
And we will do, like we've done with our other applications and forms, and have paper copies sent to the schools. So, Mr. Dillon, we can definitely look at that process, but what we've done previously is just send those paper copies and then let parents know that we have paper copies here at the district office as well as all of the schools if they needed to pick up a paper form of that application.
Well, some of these you may not even, you know, to Terry's point, you might not even, if parents don't know about it, you're not gonna hear about these issues until the school actually starts and they're getting their device and they're like, well, hey, I can't do anything with this at home. So I think it's probably just important that the teachers and staff know, so they probably know without even a conversation which student's probably gonna need this help. And as long as they know, okay, go to the office and get this form and we can get you help. You know, just so teachers know what the process is.
Well, to be honest, now that we have hotspots in-house, we have our hands on them. You know, we'll advertise a little more that we have them. I was a little skittish about advertising too much because I hadn't seen hotspot one.
Right.
So, now that we have them in our hands, you know, we'll get word on it.
Well, and it might be a good idea. I would suspect that maybe some of the students that are coming through the supply pickup line, that maybe some of those students might need access to hotspots. That might be a good place to advertise, or maybe stick a note in the book bag or whatever you're giving out to say if they need a hotspot to contact.
Yeah, the district office,
Right.
that.
I mean, that's just a good starting point.
You know, according to our phone surveys though, that we were getting on the responses, we were still getting a fairly low percentage of people that said they did not have internet. So
What was your total response?
I don't remember right off the top of my head. I was thinking it was, I think it was under 15%.
And how many hotspots did you get from the state?
I think we ordered 850. But the district is trying to secure more hotspots. You know, not that, you know, not 850, but you know, more hotspots that you know we pay for families that might not qualify for state hotspots, but may live in a outlying area or something like that. So we are trying, and I'm working with AT&T again because I think their coverage is the best in Orange County. I don't have an ETA on those hotspots, but I think we can get them in pretty soon.
What's the range on that spot?
I'm sorry?
Range.
They're all, you know, they're all different. The AT&T hotspots that we have, you have to be, it works, you know, Blue. You have to be within the same household. You can't, you know, you're not going to be able to walk too far away from it. But the hotspot itself is mobile, and you know, it works a lot like a cell phone. It gets the same signal, but you have to, you know, you have to be fairly close to it.
Mr. Finley, yes. I took one of ours from the office home, just to see if we could tax it out with the four of us at home. You know, so I had both of my boys, my wife and I, trying to hit it to do some different searching and doing some different lessons. You know, it worked fine for all four of us, because that was one of the things that we were concerned about was one device per family. Was the Wi-Fi going to be strong enough that was coming through to be able to tax that? But we could not tax it out as in speed with four of us hitting it. But if it was in the living room, it was hard for one of my sons to pick up in their bedroom. So it didn't go all over the house to give you like a house Wi-Fi. But I mean, if we were all close enough to it, it gave us enough speed.
So any more questions on hotspots? Ms. Martin, did I answer your question? there's been a little talk about bandwidth. I mentioned at our last board meeting that we were a little, as with a lot of other directors of technology around the state that I have talked to, are a little concerned about existing bandwidth that we would have in our school district. If all teachers or many teachers are streaming video conferencing at the same time, could it tax our system to where we're getting very, very slow speeds and it's not staying up to where we would have a very glitchy, connection. This week, when we have teachers coming back, I said at that time that it's a very hard thing to simulate, and it is. So we are, Dr. Brink said, we're going to run some simulations this week and try to look at our bandwidth. We have some monitoring equipment and that we'll look at and see our upload and our download speeds, and we'll keep an eye on that. I have talked to the state representative that is over bandwidth, and the school districts get bandwidth through E-rate. It's the same process, but we have a state representative that handles that part of it for us. And he said that if we ask for more bandwidth, we would be granted more bandwidth. Now, of course, we would have to pay for that bandwidth, but right now, we have some hardware that would need to be replaced before we could take advantage of the bandwidth. If we were to ask for more bandwidth and get it right now, we would be bottlenecked by some of the hardware that we have in place. We have estimated that it's going to take around $35,000 to $45,000 to replace that hardware that needs to be replaced so we can take advantage of more bandwidth. It's doable, but I don't like spending full price for hardware when we could utilize E-rate and get it at 80% discount. The bad thing about E-rate is it's a very slow process. If we apply for something starting around November, December with E-rate, we're not going to see that equipment for a year sometimes. So anyway, we will monitor the bandwidth, and we'll know more this week, and we'll know more next week, and we'll keep our eye on it. There's some things that we can do. We can kind of limit other traffic that's going through our system, and we can try some staggered times with certain classrooms. So there's more than just increasing the bandwidth of things that we can try if we start seeing problems. We haven't seen any problems yet. We've never seen any issues with our bandwidth. We've never maximized the existing bandwidth that we've got.
We've never been in this situation either, but in saying that, I know some students logged on today in other counties, and it was just blown to smithereens. They had to log off. I had a nephew to have to log off because everybody was trying to go on at the same time, and it wasn't able to pull it at all. So they never got on. They never got access to anything.
Greenville County.
It all started, and they all logged on at the same time. So I guess that would be how the teacher has a lesson plans adaptable to starting at different times or something of that nature. I don't know.
You're right. We're in very different times than we were in the spring because everybody was spread out and at home. Now we have a lot of this being, inside our school district going out. And so we don't know.
So that, what she's talking about happened in Greenville County today. And so Greenville County has virtual school as well, right? So they started hybrid and virtual?
They are doing 1 day a week, and then they also have their virtual students, and the students that are not assigned to come, like for example today, are doing e-learning at home.
Okay, so, but they crashed today. Did they have leap week last week?
I'm not sure the dates of their.
And they did.
So they, I don't know if they practiced or, you know, tried that last week with their leap week, but, you know, they crashed today. So, and I mean, that's Greenville County.
Well, I don't know how else to attack it other than to be totally reactive.
Yeah.
If we crash, if we maximize the bandwidth, then we'll act as fast as we can to fix that.
I'm just saying it from the standpoint that I want people to understand that a school district as big as Greenville County crashed. You know, so not to be alarmed if we start school and we crash.
I guess have a lot
You
of
know,
patience as
You know,
well.
just to have the patience that, you know, we're gonna have to go through and just see how it all comes together, you know, because we've not.
We will have to have patience, but, you know, sometimes a much, much bigger district can hurt you on size.
Right.
You know, us being a much smaller district, we might have things a little bit more confined,
Right.
but we may come through this just fine.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
I hope you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But, you know, we are totally in reactive mode now. And we'll do everything we can to fix any problems that we see. If we crash, we'll do what we need to get it up. I've already talked to the guy at the state, and he assures us that if we request more bandwidth and can get the hardware in place, they'll give it to us. That's about all I can say about the bandwidth. It's just a big unknown right now.
Right. And that's all I was trying to make a point of saying that, you know, I just think sometimes we catch flack for being not prepared or something, so.
Well, Ms. Martin, you know, I'm in technology. We catch flack for just about everything. We're used to it. We're going to be okay. I think we're going to be all right.
I have confidence in you, Bill.
I have confidence. It can be shaken at times, but we're going to be all right. We got a great staff, and you know, just a great district, and if we have problems, we'll get them fixed. That's what we do in technology. We're problem solvers, and we'll get them fixed. I have no doubt.
I'm sure you'll hear from us. You'll hear from somebody.
We always do, so bring it on. But you know, we sometimes that's all. That's the only way we know that there's a problem.
I know.
You know,
I
so
know.
it's part of the job.
I know.
Part of the job. Does anyone have any other questions for me? I just covered some of the, you know, highlights for technology, but
I have a quick question on the, oh gosh, not the routers, the hotspots. You said the state's picking up that tab for the end of December. What is that tab on, say, a monthly basis if they choose not to cover it after December?
I hope I don't misspeak here, but I'm thinking the monthly charge is going to be somewhere around the $20 range per month.
Per hotspot?
The AT&T representative that I have been dealing with, and I think that is the price range that we're looking at, or, you know, for the hotspots that the district is going to secure. And I would have to think, even though I do not know directly, but I would have to think that the price for the state ones should be somewhere in that vicinity. That's not, that's my best guess on that one. But I think that is something that will be discussed in the upcoming weeks. There's a lot of chatter. A lot of districts are, have received, we were in phase 2 of this. There's a lot of districts that were in phase 1 and they've had their hotspots for a couple of days. And so there's a lot of chatter going on about, what's next. I think in the next couple of weeks, months, we're going to hear some more, get some more details. And one question that I have is what is the value of a hotspot? If we lose one or we damage one and we have to replace it, right now I don't even know what the value is. So that's another question that I've got, that I'm going to ask and find out. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. And now Dr. Pillman will share some information regarding DHEC guidance and reporting.
Okay, another little bit of good news. We've got our DHEC numbers again today. And so kind of the trend that we've been wanting and watching has started to come down continually. If we go back to about 4 weeks ago, we were high, but we have been able to watch a continual decrease in cases. But just kind of to remind you of the two pieces that kind of have numbers associated with them. The 2-week incident rate is the kind of the average incidence for if it was based on 100,000 people. So whenever we look at those numbers, we've been kind of seeing ourselves over 200. The medium range is from 50 to 200. And for us to get to a low, we'll have to be 50 or below. So as we look at those numbers in just a minute, you'll be able to compare that. And then also the 2-week percent positive. So whenever you look at that positive test positive rate, percent positive, that's got to be less than 10% to go into a medium and less than 5% to go into a low. So whenever we look at our actual numbers, you can see how in the county that we are now a medium, low, high. So whenever you look at our trend in incident rate, and sorry, that didn't line up exactly right with the conversion. On the incident rate, we are now a medium with 112. If you go back to that rate to get below 100 would put us, get below 50 would put us at a low. So we still have a little bit of ways to go to get to a low in that rate. The trend in incident rate, that's just kind of the trends in general. There's no numbers really associated with that one, but we've been low for a couple of weeks with this one. And then the percent positive went from a high, or is still high, but we're very close to a medium with, we're at 10.2%. If you go back and look at how we've kind of gone over the past 4 weeks, you'll look at that first number with the 112 currently. We were over 400 about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and about been dropping almost 100 each week. We went to like 315, then 2 something last week, and then we felt like we would get into the below 200 for this week to give us a medium from there. The low incident rate, of course, the high still rated for the percent positive is one of those rates that is based on the number of people that take it and the percent of those that are positive. And that's just kind of all based on that percent positive there. So you can see that we are now in a medium. They actually used Lawrence County as one of the examples in your document. So you can see how they rated us there. Incident rate of medium, trend rate of low, percent positive of high. And this metric is a high, medium, low. So it averages out as an overall medium. So in our plan, that will put us at a hybrid medium rating for school return. Any questions about the DHEC?
If that high dropped to a medium, would we still remain medium? What would
It'd be a medium, low, medium, and that would still average out to a medium. So you'd have to have at least a low, low, medium to go green, or to be in a low rate overall. So they try somewhat to average the two, the 3 numbers to get a rating. So that you'd have to have 2 lows and a medium to get a low rating.
Are we going to, I feel like this is something that we need to open up, and that's to talk about if the report comes out on Monday, because it could get changed to Fridays. You know, it seems fine if we're going in a good direction, but what about the Monday afternoon, we get the report that we're back in a high scenario? Are we gonna send our kids to school that entire week and wait a week to go to e-learning?
Our intent is if we get better, we'll change the system for parents the following Monday versus saying everybody's got to be at school tomorrow. You know, so if we went from Monday, yellow, Tuesday, Monday report gives us a yellow and a green, versus telling everybody they got to be at school the next morning. Since they already have their plans, we would stay with the yellow phase until the next Monday. But if we went red, we feel like it would be pertinent for us to go ahead and say, sorry, we're red, we got to stop it. So we don't want to be kind of allowing the spread for another whole week in our buildings if our community is.
Yeah.
So our intent is if we get worse, we immediately swap to the more stringent. So if we go from green to yellow, we would go hybrid the next day. Or if we went from green to red or yellow to red, we'd go red the next day. So that's kind of our intent of kind of erring on the side of safety better on that route than, you know, giving the parents time to reschedule their child care and that kind of stuff going on.
So since the board voted the way that we were gonna move forward at the last board meeting, and it's different than that now, do we need to revote?
I think you're asking about a 2-week notice versus a 1-week notice. Is that what you're
No.
asking? So
I'm talking about the DHEC numbers because we voted based on it being Friday.
right. I don't know that, I mean, I think we based our vote, and I don't have the script to see if we said Friday in there or if it was based on the current levels of DHEC.
It was on the current levels of DHEC, but it was based on the fact that we were gonna be receiving them on Friday.
Right.
And then that was gonna give the weekend for parents to be able to make preparations for the next week.
Right.
As to how they were gonna, what they were gonna have to do with kids if we had to change into red quickly.
I mean, I personally don't feel like that's got to be a revote because I know we kind of stuck with the DHEC numbers because we can work within the guidance of DHEC numbers and the phases with the ratings that we get for Monday to start the next Monday. But I don't know if that was in the minutes. I haven't read those to see if it was a Friday statement, if we need to re-vote and put that back up. But I know that we're good living with the guidance that we have right now from a DHEC number and the phases that we've implemented.
And so then from the standpoint that you had put out that you were gonna make an announcement for the first 2 weeks, and we had said that we were gonna do it week to week. I mean, were you doing that from the standpoint of it being leap week in the first week of school, and then after that, it was gonna be weekly, or was that your?
Yes, we will continue to make any announcements weekly based on the DHEC community spread levels reporting. Initially, we were just looking at being able to give parents and our teachers being courteous enough to be able to give them an opportunity to prepare and be ready for the first day of school. So the 2 weeks notice would just be for the first day of school so that they will know how to prepare and plan for that. But then after that, there will continue to be the weekly announcement as to how we will continue with our learning phase.
But your 2 weeks, when you said that you were gonna give a 2 weeks plan, were you meaning that you're giving the LEAP plan and because, I mean, LEAP would be part of it as well, as to whether or not kids would go, right? I mean, if we were not.
Well, that's one of the things that the state's kind of mandated our LEAP week versus no matter what our DHEC levels are. So that's why we have a fifth of our kids basically coming in every day, except for sixth and ninth graders. So everywhere else, you basically have 1/5 of your population minus the third of the kids that are out because of virtual. Because some of them are still coming in, but majority of those kids have opted not to. But whenever you look at, and I think guidance that Dr. Thomas has received from kind of the superintendents in the state, is that allowing parents enough of a window to make those plans, that 2-week notice is only for the start of the first day of school, not necessarily going forward a 2-week every time. So we won't tell you next Monday that the next 2 weeks will be this, and the next Monday, the next 2 weeks will be this. It's just the first day of school, given a 2-week notice of how we're going to start and begin the actual school year. So, I mean,
Yeah, I see, you know, but if you start out and you say, I'm giving you a 2 weeks notice that we're in, say, hybrid or whatever. And then that,
if next Monday comes back to red, you know,
yeah,
I mean, we'll have to shut down. Our plan was to try to give somebody a good enough window to be comfortable with our start of school. You know, if we told them, if these numbers came down a little bit more in either one of these areas, you know, we could have been green. And I think a lot of our community would be more comfortable coming back to start off with, easing in with a hybrid, the people that I've talked to get at least a week or 2 weeks under their belt with a hybrid, getting used to the protocols because we've been out of school for 5 months, and just kind of easing our way back into, you know, our goal is to get us back 5 days.
right.
You know, and we're hoping that these numbers do go down in the next couple of weeks so that we can be green and full on and back in. But so that's kind of where we were trying to head with our 2-week notice of how we're starting school. It's not a 2-week notice of every week. It's just a 2-week notice of how we're starting.
Okay.
And then on September 7th, we would know what we were doing on the 14th.
That is
It
correct.
could change.
Yes, ma'am. So we could start week 1 in yellow and week 2 could be green. Okay. Any other questions that you may have, DA?
Excuse me, in the motion for the minutes, it didn't say Friday or Monday. It just says will be reviewed on a weekly basis to determine the appropriate phases of instruction for the next week throughout the first semester. So it didn't, because I think that you all had the discussion about trying to get it back to Friday, but
Or when a report would come in or something like that. The other day.
DHEC was trying to work their numbers to kind of get that worked out, but they were unable to get their calculations recalculated so that they could release every Friday. So I don't know what all their background was, but they had originally worked their way. Several of the organizations in the state had requested that. The state superintendent had requested that, but that just didn't happen from the ability that DHEC had to swap those days. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to jump in, Mr. Carpenter. Before Mr. Murray comes up for the board policy first reading, I actually would like to request that we table this first reading. And the reason that I would request that is that I sat in on the school law conference last Thursday and Friday, and a lot of discussion was had about this particular Title IX change. And there are currently 3 lawsuits pending challenging the changes. And also the National School Board Association has filed a motion to push back the change in this particular policy. So based on that new information that came straight from the school board law conference, I would like to table the first reading for school board policy GBAA.
With sexual harassment and retaliation for staff.
For staff and students.
Yes,
Is that your motion?
yes, sir.
Are you doing it for staff and
And students, right.
students is JIAA?
Excuse me.
Well, you just stated it on one of them.
Okay, so that's your motion to table the first reading of board policy, GBAA, JIAA.
Yes.
We will have a second.
Second.
Okay. We'll move properly second to table the first reading of policy GBAA and JIAA. Any further discussion?
Well, I think we should have discussion about the policies. I think that was part of the issue that we've had with policies is that, and we've had this discussion. I know that Dr. Thomas was given information that said we've not had this discussion. But we have had the discussion that we wanted policies sooner so that we could look at them. And
We've had discussion, we haven't had a motion.
I'm sorry,
We have not a motion.
no,
to change
but
the way we do it.
no, but that we would be given policies earlier that we could look at.
I would like to ask Ms. Bird a question. When do you get the policies from the state office or from Columbia, South Carolina School Board Association, or from the state level when they come to you? When do you get those so they can be disseminated earlier? And I know anytime we've been passed, we've always said to, if any questions come up during the meantime, to give you a call. So I guess my question is to you is when do you get these policies?
It depends, but it's typically between one board meeting and the next board meeting. So it could be, it has to be at least a week before the board meeting for it to be included on the agenda. But if we got it, 3 weeks before the board meeting and we had time to go through and process it and get it out and get it on the agenda, but it would be within that basically 4 to 5 week period of time between board meetings that we get the policies. And the idea with first reading is simply that that's the point that we are presenting the policy to you.
Not to take action.
And not to take action, but for you to hear the policy. And now you would have from this board meeting to the next board meeting to review the policy. At the next board meeting at second reading, there would be potentially a motion to approve. A second, then there would be discussion. Then there would be an opportunity to make a motion to amend the policy, or there would be the opportunity to make a motion to not take action on second reading, but to bring it back for a third reading. So the processes are there to give you all the time that you need. There is no mandate that you ever take action on a policy at any given time. That's entirely up to you. You can delay it for as many readings as you want to delay it.
Ms. Levin, do you understand that?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. Not specifically even just to this policy, but just in general, the format of our meetings and the opportunity to investigate, look into, ask questions. This isn't really the format that we can all do that and say, hey, Barbara, can you Google this and find out something, or can you call your contact at so-and-so? It's not a good platform for bringing up issues and asking questions. And once the first reading is in place, then the only way to make a change is to make an amendment or to make a motion, make an amendment or whatnot. The board's primary responsibility is to hire the superintendent and to write policy. So for us, if that's our primary responsibility, I shouldn't have to make a motion to change something just because it's been through a first reading. I should be able to have a conversation with the whole board, determine what needs to happen, and then move forward. We shouldn't have to make a motion to change something just because it's had a first reading, which is why we had talked about this, just pushing it back a board meeting. Send us the policy this month, we can review it, ask questions, come together if need be, and then you can put it on the agenda for the following board meeting for a first reading. Now, this policy in particular, it does have to do with that, but the main point of my motion for this policy is that during the school board law conference, and the individual speaking there about this particular policy in Title IX specifically, that even the National School Board Association isn't just pushing this policy out and saying, okay, we're gonna do this. They're saying no, and lawsuits have been filed. So I don't know that we would want to take a first reading on this policy until we see what their positions play out with.
But currently, there's been no injunctive relief against the regulations. Therefore, these regulations are already in place according to the Department of Education in terms of Title IX. So if we are not adhering to the regulations as promulgated by the Department of Education, then we put ourselves in jeopardy of a potential lawsuit.
I don't think she's talking about us not being compliant. I think what she wants to say is that when you hear from them, she wants you to say, oh, I just got a policy GBA. You can discuss it before I put it before my hearing.
Right.
In order for you to do that, you would need to schedule a board work session.
That's
Because
fine.
that's the only way that the board can come together and have that kind of discussion as a group. And that's perfectly okay. You could have first reading and then schedule a board work session to review and discuss and prepare amendments that you wanted to make a motion for during second reading. That would be the ideal way to do it, is to have first reading, then schedule a board work session to review and discuss it as a group and prepare any amendments that you may want to make for motion at second reading. Or decide that you haven't finalized what you're doing yet and prepare the motion to delay action on it until a third reading. So that would be the ideal way to do it from a parliamentary perspective.
Well, if there was a policy, like if you presented a policy, even like the next one, that you're asking us to forego the second reading, because that was one that I had questioned about myself, because there's some wording in there that I just don't feel we have the ability to enforce. And I feel like that, we do need a policy of this sort for going back to school, but there's wording in this policy that we're not going to be able to enforce as a district, and that some of that wording needs to be changed. And so to forego second reading and pass it, I don't think would be
Unless you were prepared to make motions to make the amendments tonight.
But, yeah. Well, I mean,
it's the other
before we get to that, but I'm just saying that if we had a first reading of something, and then we said that we felt like that the policy was simple enough that we would not, that it wouldn't require a work session then to meet, then we could somehow have that in the motion, that or something there that we would say, well, this can go forward into a second reading without a workshop required. Or if it was a policy that we felt like had substance to it, or some stuff that any one of the board members had an issue with that they wanted to discuss, then we would say, well, I have some more questions about this and I'd like for us to have further discussion about it. Then we would have a work session. So is it something that we could put into play that would allow us to be able to make a differentiation between policies? I mean, some policies are pretty straightforward that you don't have to have a discussion and have a work session with everything, but some of them are involved, like both of these that we're talking about tonight. You know, you got sexual harassment and then you got face coverings.
ADD, we didn't receive it, the model to make it specific for us until August the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
We received it August 3rd, and then by the time it, was reviewed Mr. Murray and set up for our district.
And actually, we received it on August 3rd, and then the State Department of Education changed their
Yeah,
rules and policies
that's right.
after that. So we had
Yeah.
to make revisions to it to coincide with what State Department of Education policy was.
So based on what you're saying, even though we got it tonight, we could still table it for a work session, even before, and come back with the reading that we would want to have for the second one, and if it's agreeable to everything, we could do it then, or either just prolong it to a third reading, actually.
Read.
I mean, this
We could do 10
particular
readings
policy,
before we-
Any of them.
Yeah,
this particular policy though on sexual harassment, retaliation for staff and for students regarding Title IX, it is a very specific that in the school board law conference, that the National School Board Association has even pushed back and said no. And there's 3 lawsuits pending. That's why I feel like we should just table this one completely until we at least get some direction on what they're doing. And then we come back and we can address it in any other manner, we see fit. So that's why I'm making that motion.
And just a technical issue, just a point of order, that's a change in the agenda that should have been presented at the beginning of the meeting as a motion to revise the
Well,
agenda.
Mr. Carpenter and I talked about that prior, and maybe neither one of us
Yeah,
were
I
aware
was
of
just
that.
clarifying that for future reference, that if there's something on the agenda that you don't want to do that night, you make a motion at the beginning of the meeting to revise the agenda, to remove something like that.
So noted.
But I'm
But she
fine,
can make a motion to table it.
Yes.
absolutely.
So,
I mean, without having to do that at the beginning of the meeting to amend the agenda. She can make a motion to table the policy, the vote on.
After first reading, or,
Well, she can do like what she did. She made the motion to table before first reading. But I mean,
I'm just here to present the policies that are provided to.
I know, but I mean, do
Boards
you know
Association.
something? I mean,
I'm just speaking from a technical perspective.
Mhm.
It would be better to go ahead and do first reading, but not take any action on it. And when you get the second reading, if you still don't want to take any action on it, or if you don't want it on the agenda next month for a second reading, then you don't put it on the agenda next month for a second reading. If you want to have a board work session between those times, then you do that board work session to discuss it. So that's a better, cleaner way to do it from
The
a,
problem with this particular policy though is that the National School Board Association is pushing back on it. That's what the South Carolina School Law Conference referenced on multiple occasions. So on kind of any other policy, I could totally understand your point on that. But for this particular policy, why would we even accept a first reading if we know that there's controversy and that things may change related to it?
because technically you aren't supposed to be able to discuss it until after we have first reading.
and that's
So-
true from past history. Even wording has to be so broad, it's unbelievable, because I used to always want to change the wording in something, and they said if it's too narrow, or it just won't fit, because you gotta have a broader perspective of it. And I never liked that. It didn't work for me, so
And nothing you.
It can be tabled from now on and there. It
Absolutely.
doesn't have to come back open ever again.
And nothing
right
from first reading is binding in any
Right.
way whatsoever. It's just presenting the policy for your consideration
It
at
could
first
actually be
reading.
buried and never walk back up. You just have to exist under the old policies that we had before.
Right now, she has a motion on the floor for the motion to be tabled. So we have to entertain it.
Absolutely.
And we have a second.
Mrs. Barton has already seconded, sir.
Second.
I think we've sufficiently discussed it.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay,
Okay, well, motion
okay, we
passes.
just need the table.
Will be.
Well, that's what.
That's what,
That's what.
Oh, the table?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you could do away with it out there, no. Yeah, vote the table, absolutely.
may I just restate that motion in the second again then, so that you all can vote again now, please do that. Ms. Little made a motion to table policy GBAA and JIAA. Ms. Martin seconded. And, do you mind calling for the count again, just so that we're all clear
All in favor?
of tabling,
By raising hand, right hand?
tabling,
Tabling the motion.
Yeah.
tabling those policies, okay,
Okay.
Yes. How many say it again? Oh, what?
Everybody.
okay,
Okay. Right,
Thank
now-
you.
now-
thank you.
Thank you.
Next,
So the next one was about the face coverings.
Mhm.
And so, and my thing went dead, but my parent, well,
You need it?
no, I can remember what it basically says, but I know that we need something for the face coverings, and I realize that, and, but there's wording in here that I don't think we can enforce, because it's not a law to wear a face mask. It starts out at the top, saying, okay, I'll do this. I mean, it starts out at the top saying that the CDC recommends. And then on down in here, it says that, if a student says that they're not gonna wear one, that that it's required. We've got the required word under the student section, and we're saying that we're gonna discipline the student if they don't wear one. We're saying that if visitors show up and refuse to wear one, we're gonna make them leave the property. I mean, I think we're stepping over a line that we don't need to be stepping. One of my biggest things that's, I have a problem with, what are we gonna do when we have athletic events? Because that's a campus, and we're gonna have all kind of people coming on a campus to, I mean, there's no way we're gonna be able to police people wearing a mask. I know that in that school law, conference, that this was one of the topics that was brought up as well, talking about how to enforce this policy. And it was talking about the fact that when you had adults or visitors or anything coming in that either refused to wear a mask or that had any kind of medical condition that kept them from wearing a mask, that you had specific places set aside where those people would be sitting. And that, I mean, if we do something like that, it keeps us from a confrontation type situation with somebody that can just create havoc and create more of a problem than we want to create. I just don't understand why we want to put wording like this in a policy that creates confrontation of that nature. So my point was, even though you're asking us to forego the second reading with this, and I realize we need to have something, is that, we have some type of work session to talk about it before school starts, even if it's a phone call conversation or something to talk about it, or whatever, to come up with wording so that we have a policy in place before school starts for this. But I think some of this wording either needs to come out or it needs to be reworded.
And I will say that the word required is included in the policy because that is what we received from State Superintendent no experiment that is required.
I understand, but she doesn't have authority to make that law. You know, it's, you can have a sign up on a restaurant that says masks are required. But you see people walking in restaurants all the time without masks. I mean, there's no way to police that.
Right, I mean, if you, there's no reason to have a rule if there's not a way to effectively police it and enforce it.
Those three words would kill it anyway. I've got a medical condition. You can't find out if they got a medical condition or not.
Right,
But you can't make them wear that mask. Walmart can't, no restaurant can.
right.
You
And
can't
that was
force them to
It's
do
not an enforceable law, but I know we need something in place because otherwise we wouldn't even be having a discussion because of the pandemic. And I understand where you're coming from. And it's not an enforceable law. It is not a law. In some places they've had like when you cannot social distance, you know, masks or we're asking you to wear masks. Masks are being given. Some children are wearing them, some children are not, and policies are being followed according to the student handbook as well. But we definitely need something in place before school starts. My concern is holding the district harmless of sickness or even death, God forbid, if that should happen, and not knowing where it came from. And I don't want to have anybody or a person, you know, death on my hands when it comes to that, especially when we have nothing in place for that. And, you know, of course, when you cannot social distance, yes, but if you can social distance, then masks would be, we would ask the masks even, and giving them to them, some, you know, again, wearing some or not. Student discipline handbook, you know, you can't make anybody because it is not enforceable by law, but it's like, I want to wear a mask to keep you safe, and I want you to wear a mask to make me safe. You know, that could be looked at, that's what we're asking. But I don't know, we need something in place, so.
And I think that's the intent. We know that we can't require it. I mean, Walmart said, you know, what you go to Walmart, see a lot of people don't have on masks.
Yeah.
But what you are seeing is the majority of people are wearing masks.
Yeah.
And the report came out in Greenville today that they are doing extremely well because they're wearing masks.
I'm just saying that there's wording, we can't adopt a policy.
I understand that, but I'm saying we're the ones who asking kids to come back to school.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I have to get sick because you don't want to wear a mask.
I'm not telling you
I
that.
know, I'm not saying you personally, but I'm just saying, that's what we're saying to some people that want to wear masks.
But if the mask works, and you wearing one and I don't want to, your mask must don't work, the way I see it. I mean, if it's gonna keep you from getting sick, it don't matter if I got one, if you got one of them.
Well, I don't know about anything else, but I'm not playing.
And I will say that the mask wearing falls under our discipline code as it relates to, dress code. So just kind of like student IDs and things like that. Yes, sometimes that's hard to enforce as well, but it falls under that code, so we will follow those processes.
I know they can't have the language, anything that's gonna be controversy on the mask, it's what's written on all those things. You got so many different types of face coverings.
I just think this particular policy needs some more discussion because I think that there are perfectly acceptable ways to make this work in the school building, but when we're asking community members, hey, can you come to a football game and pay your money so our district can make money or try to fund some of itself. But if you are caught without your mask, you're going to be asked to leave the stadium. Those are the kinds of things that I think are real issues because this is visitors will be asked to leave the district property if they refuse to wear masks. But I'm sure there's plenty of community members that want to participate in any events that we open back up. And some may not want to wear masks. And one of the topics at the school law conference was having an assigned space for those individuals. So I don't think a policy is not needed. I just think it needs some word tweaking. Yeah. Because I think we can better, police the student, so to speak, or enforce from a student perspective than we can a visitor on the property at an athletic event, so to speak.
Is there a way that we can make those changes and then have a second reading like tonight?
If you know, well, you can make the changes and still take action on first reading. You would just make a motion to, so if you waive second reading and then made a motion to amend the policy however you wanted to amend it prior to taking final action on it, then you could do that. I've been going through it and it seems like the line that is a critical concern is where it says visitors will be asked to leave district property if they refuse to wear a face covering. In terms of staff and students, it's not that hard and fast. It says failure or refusal to wear a face covering by a staff member or a student may result in discipline in accordance with district policy and code of conduct is applicable. So it's not as hard and fast where students and staff are concerned. So if you took out just that one line, visitors will be asked to leave district property if they refuse to wear a face covering, it still leaves in there, visitors will wear a face covering while on district property, but it doesn't provide any kind of punitive action to be taken if they don't. Yeah, and in that particular case, it's not a required, it's that if they don't wear face coverings, they may be subject to discipline.
This is just a general, unless there's something different, but this is just a general policy about face covering. So it's talking about visitors, and it says district property. So I would kind of interpret that to mean if it were a basketball game or a football game or, horse concert, whatever we decide to open back up, because I know we don't know those answers yet, but.
I understand exactly what you're saying. But I'm saying, when you're talking about business, those students who come to school every day, those are not business, those are students.
We're not talking about students, we're talking about the visitors.
On Facebook.
Do you have a hard copy?
We'll look under visitors.
It's on the,
It's on the second page.
Sounds like Mr. Murray's suggestion of just amending it to remove the part that deals with visitors.
Or maybe you use the word visitors, maybe ask to leave district property, or take it out altogether and go inside.
So the proper process to follow would be, essentially we've had the first reading if we move forward with it. The process would be for somebody to make a motion to waive second reading. Then once that's done, somebody would make a motion to approve the policy. Once that's first, you got a first and a second on that motion, then you would make the amendments and make a motion to make amendments to it, vote on those amendments, and then go back and take the vote on the original motion to approve the policy. That would be the parliamentary process to follow for that. If you
Okay,
want to move forward.
So I make a motion that we approve board policy ADD, face covering, and waive second reading.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Wait,
wait.
you said approve ADD and waive second reading?
Yes?
You don't want to do it that way.
Okay,
You want
that's
to waive
why
second
waive
reading.
second reading first.
First.
And then
Okay.
motion to amend.
And
Make a
then
motion.
make a motion to approve.
Approve it.
And after the first and second on the approval, then you have the discussion and make the amendments that you
Okay.
want to make.
I make a motion to waive second reading of board policy ADD.
second.
Second.
It's gonna be moved to second. All in favor?
My,
Right hand.
Time's up. I'm reading that.
okay,
Policy, ADD.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to make a motion to amend board policy ADD.
You make a motion to approve it first, and then when you're in discussion, then somebody can make a motion to amend it. So you make a motion to approve policy ADD, and then a second. And then during the discussion, you can make additional motions to amend it.
That's what she did, but she did it in one motion versus two.
No, we voted.
That was her original motion.
We voted to waive the second reading.
You voted to waive second reading, and that was approved. The next step would be to vote to approve policy ADD
Discussion, amendment.
and get a second.
I make a motion to approve policy ADD.
Second.
Second.
Now you have your discussion, and now you can make a motion to make amendments.
Now it's discussion time.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to amend board policy ADD to reflect that under section visitors, that we remove the last sentence, visitors will be asked to leave district property if they refuse to wear face covering.
Second.
Second.
Second. That we amend. No discussion. Okay. All those in favor, let me know by your right hand.
You've got the original motion on the board to approve the policy. Now you ask if there's any further discussion. If not, then ask for a vote on the policy ADD as amended.
Right.
Further discussion? Okay, now we move to amend. Further discussion.
To approve it.
To
approve the amendment.
I make a motion to approve policy ADD as amended.
Second.
Second. All in favor, let me know right here. Okay.
And finally, we are providing you with a copy of temporary administrative rule JER, which provides guidance on the reporting of student attendance for on-site, virtual, and hybrid school environments and reaffirms the applicability of truancy laws in any of these three environments. No action is required by the board.
Thank goodness.
Administrative rule.
That's only an administrative rule.
If you have nothing more for me, thank you very much.
For your patience.
Well, I tell you, you still got Jim left.
Yeah, but I know Jim.
Yeah, but he's got a long one.
Yeah, take the money. I mean, I can read.
Good evening.
Is it a good one?
I was about to say, is it?
Good evening.
I hope it's gonna get better from here.
Oh, yes, it will.
All right, I think everyone got a copy of the financial report for July. Our balance on hand with the treasurer as of July 31st was $7,447,603. Our general fund revenues for that, for the first month of our fiscal year ended July 31st was $2,708,514, with expenditures during that same period of $1,015,584 for a difference of $1,692,929. Our total tax collections for the month of July was $669,080. Does anyone have any questions about the financial report before we go into my second item?
What's the big difference between this year and last year?
In terms of the balance on hand of the treasurer?
Yeah.
Because the tax collections and revenues were, we noticed as we went through the year that we started off about 1.2 million behind, and we maintained that on and on. So that's just the cash on hand balance. Some of that is the fact that during the month of July, we incurred expenses related to COVID preparations that will be reimbursed, but that doesn't keep us from having to upfront those costs while we wait for reimbursement. So that's part of the reason that we're going to discuss the second item, which is the tax anticipation note issuance. Does anyone have any questions regarding the other questions about the financial report before we go into that? Okay. All right, so I'm bringing before the board a resolution to authorize the issuance of a tax anticipation note not exceeding $5.5 million. This note would be issued through SCAGO, which is the South Carolina Association of Governmental Organizations, which would issue a large short-term note on behalf of numerous school districts in South Carolina. This structure reduces the cost and administrative burden to the individual borrowers while providing cash flow that is needed by many school districts in the fall months before the county start collecting the real estate taxes. The proceeds of the note would be received in September and are due for repayment in March. The participating districts will likely have to remit their payments to SCAGO in late January or February when the local property taxes have been received. Because it is a short-term borrowing, it does not have an effect on our constitutional debt limits. It's been several years since District 55 has last issued a tax anticipation note. Many districts in our state issue these notes on an annual basis. We have had a sufficient fund balance with the county treasurer to get through the low point that comes each fall. Right now, we still have a decent fund balance, and hopefully this issuance would serve as just an insurance policy to get us through the uncertainties in funding that we expect to receive from our local revenues. The state has continued funding school districts in the same manner as they had, and so far our county revenues have been collected in a similar manner than they have been in prior years. In my conversations with Cindy Burke, County Treasurer, last week, she says she's still seeing roughly the same collection percentages that she had in prior years. So we're hopeful that that trend will continue when the real estate taxes start coming in December and January. In addition to those uneven revenues that we receive from county taxes, we also have to consider our COVID-related expenditures. We have been very fortunate that the vast majority of our added costs for dealing with the current pandemic have been funded through additional sources of federal and state revenues. At the end of the day, the financial impact of COVID-19 to our district should be minimal. But in terms of cash flow, because we have to spend the money and request reimbursement, there have been significant net outflows while we await those reimbursements. So far, we have been able to fund all of the additional expenses out of our fund balance while we await that reimbursement from the state, but it does not help the reduction in our fund balance in the meantime. The reason we're requesting $5.5 million is that represents approximately 2 months of our payroll costs for the district. If this board approves the resolution that I'm presenting, or that you've been presented, those funds that we received in September would be invested in the local government investment pool, which is where our funds on hand with the county treasurer are invested in that same pool. And that fund is getting currently a pretty decent return on our investment. The interest in that investment pool would partially offset at least the cost of the borrowing itself. So right now, short-term borrowing rates are very low, and we have been receiving that good return. So if everything goes well, and we don't have to even tap into those funds, we would be able to very easily pay back in January when the tax revenues come in. But if tax revenues come in more slowly than Cindy is anticipating, these funds would be used as a cushion to help ride out that. There's a lot of districts in South Carolina that have not been issuing until this year, and that are as a precaution against possible delays in collection of local revenues. And again, this resolution would require board action in order for us to proceed with that issuance. But I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So when did you say the last time District 55 had to do this?
Oh gosh, Kathy, I don't know the last year, but
It's been a long time.
It's quite a few years.
Okay.
It's been probably 5 or 6 at least.
Yeah,
You know,
it was, I did look it up, but it was not during Dr. Peters. I think Dr. Strickland may have been superintendent then.
so
it's
it's back in
been,
that 5 years range. It's not something that we're accustomed to doing. We have been very fortunate. We don't have what I would call a healthy fund balance. It falls well short of what most people recommend, but we maintain enough to get us through that fall low point. But again, this would just be an insurance policy. Hopefully those funds would be received in September and invested and then turned around and paid back on January and when all the good folks of Lawrence County pay all their property taxes.
So we have a motion to approve 10.
I make a motion to authorize the issuance of a not exceeding $5,500,000 tax anticipation note, Series 2020 taxable or tax exempt of School District Number 55 of Lawrence County, South Carolina, authorizing the sale of said note to the South Carolina Association of Governmental Organizations pursuant to the terms of its TAN program, prescribing the terms and conditions under which the note may be issued, providing for the form of note, providing for the payment thereof, authorizing certain officials of the school district to determine certain matters relating to the note and other matters relating thereto.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion, second, discussion. All in favor? Right. Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, do I hear a request for adjournment?
So moved.
Y'all have been,
Second.
best y'all been in.
Appreciate you.
Second.
The best y'all been trying in 20 years.
We need to. All right, hands, all right. No, not
Thank you.
And then we'll get here at the.
Oh,
Yes.